If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. Chapter 1: Origins and the Birth of a Search Giant. Part 1: BackRub and the Stanford Spark, 1995 to 1996. In the spring of 1995, Stanford University buzzed with the energy of countless research projects, but few would change the world like the one taking shape in Larry Page's mind. Page, a computer science graduate student, had grown frustrated with the existing state of web search. The internet was exploding with new websites daily, yet finding relevant information felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. Most search engines simply counted how many times keywords appeared on a page, leading to results that were often useless or misleading. Page's breakthrough came from an unexpected source: academic citations. He realized that in the scholarly world, the most important papers were those cited most frequently by other researchers. What if the same principle could apply to websites? Instead of just looking at the words on a page, what if you could judge its importance by how many other sites linked to it? This idea would become the foundation of everything that followed. Enter Sergey Brin, a fellow Stanford graduate student with a sharp mind for mathematics and data mining. When Page shared his concept, Brin immediately grasped its potential. The two began working together, spending countless hours in Stanford's computer labs, writing code and testing their theories. Their collaboration was electric. Page brought the vision while Brin provided the mathematical rigor to make it work. They called their project BackRub, a name that reflected how it crawled the web backwards through links to determine page importance. The system was revolutionary. While other search engines focused on keywords, BackRub analyzed the web's link structure, treating each link as a vote of confidence. Pages with more quality links pointing to them would rank higher in search results. The technical challenges were immense. The early web had millions of pages, and BackRub needed to download and analyze vast amounts of data. The duo commandeered Stanford's computer resources, running their crawler on university servers. Their project consumed so much bandwidth and storage that it occasionally crashed the entire system, earning them both admiration and frustration from the IT department. By 1996, BackRub was producing search results that amazed everyone who tried it. The quality was dramatically better than existing options like Alta Vista or Yahoo. Word began spreading through Stanford's corridors about the two graduate students who had solved web search. Faculty members started using BackRub for their own research, impressed by its accuracy and relevance. The algorithm they developed would later become known as PageRank, named after Larry Page. But in these early days, it was simply an academic experiment that happened to work extraordinarily well. Neither Page nor Brin initially planned to start a company. They were focused on their dissertations and advancing computer science knowledge. However, the power of what they had created was becoming impossible to ignore. BackRub had proven that the web's own structure could reveal the quality and importance of information. This insight would soon transform from a university research project into the foundation of the world's most valuable technology company. Part 2: Naming Google and Early Development, 1997. By 1997, Larry Page and Sergey Brin faced their first major decision beyond the technology itself. Their revolutionary search engine needed a proper name. BackRub, while descriptive of how their system worked by analyzing backlinks, didn't capture the grand vision they had developed for organizing the world's information. The name Google emerged from a playful conversation about the mathematical term Google, the number 1 followed by 100 zeros. Sean Anderson, a fellow Stanford student, suggested the name during a brainstorming session. When he checked if the domain was available, he accidentally misspelled Google as Google. The typo stuck. Page and Brin loved how the name suggested the vast scale of information they wanted to organize and search through. With their new identity established, The duo threw themselves into refining their search algorithm. The PageRank system was working, but it needed to handle more websites and deliver faster results. They spent countless hours in Stanford's computer labs, tweaking the mathematical formulas that determined which pages ranked highest for different search terms. The technical challenges were immense. Their algorithm required enormous computing power to analyze billions of web pages and the links between them. Traditional computers couldn't handle the workload. So Page and Brin got creative, building their own servers from cheap parts and housing them in Page's dorm room. The setup looked like a mad scientist's experiment. Towers of hard drives connected by colorful cables, humming day and night. Word about their superior search results began spreading through Stanford's computer science department. Professors started using Google instead of existing search engines like AltaVista or Yahoo. The difference was striking. While other search engines often returned irrelevant results filled with spam, Google consistently found exactly what users wanted. Early feedback revealed both the power and the problems with their approach. Users loved the clean, simple interface and accurate results. But the system sometimes crashed under heavy use. And certain types of searches still produced odd results. Each piece of feedback sent Page and Brin back to their code, making adjustments and improvements. By late 1997, Google was handling thousands of searches daily, all running on their makeshift server setup. The academic community took notice. Computer science conferences invited them to present their work. Tech industry veterans began visiting Stanford to see the search engine that was generating so much buzz. The growing attention forced a crucial realization. Their academic project was evolving into something much bigger. The technology worked, users loved it, and demand was growing exponentially. But supporting this growth would require resources far beyond what a university project could provide. The foundations were solid, the name was memorable, and the vision was clear. Google was ready to take its next big step into the commercial world. Part 3. Launching Google Inc. in a garage. September 4th, 1998. The moment had arrived. On September 4th, 1998, Larry Page and Sergey Brin officially founded Google Inc., transforming their Stanford research project into a real company. They needed a place to work, and finding office space was expensive for two graduate students with big dreams but limited funds. Susan Wojcicki, a friend from Stanford, offered them her garage in Menlo Park. The space was cramped and basic, but it became the birthplace of what would become one of the world's most powerful companies. They set up folding tables, brought in their computers, and created their first official headquarters in that modest garage. The rent was reasonable, and more importantly, it gave them the freedom to work around the clock. The garage buzzed with activity. Page and Brin worked 18-hour days, writing code, testing algorithms, and refining their search engine. They survived on pizza and determination. The physical space might have been humble, but their ambitions were enormous. They believed they could organize all the world's information and make it useful for everyone. Finding their first employees proved challenging. They needed talented programmers who would accept low pay in exchange for equity in an unproven company. Craig Silverstein became their first hire, a fellow Stanford computer science student who believed in their vision. Soon after, they brought in more engineers who were willing to bet their careers on this garage startup. Money became a constant concern. Server costs were mounting as more people discovered and used their search engine. The founders reached out to potential investors, explaining their technology and their plans. Many investors struggled to understand how a search engine could generate significant revenue. The dot-com boom was creating wild valuations, but investors wanted to see a clear path to profits. Andy Bechtolsheim, co-founder of Sun Microsystems, became their first major supporter. After a brief demonstration of their search technology, he wrote them a check for $100,000 made out to Google Inc. The problem was that Google Inc. didn't officially exist yet. They had to rush to incorporate the company just to cash the check. Other early investors followed. David Cheriton, their Stanford professor, invested his own money and helped connect them with more investors. These early funding rounds totaled around $1 million, giving them enough resources to move beyond the garage and hire more employees. The startup culture they created was intense but collaborative. Everyone worked long hours, shared ideas freely, and believed they were building something revolutionary. They moved fast, tested new features quickly, and prioritized user experience above everything else. This approach set them apart from competitors who focused more on flashy websites than search quality. By late 1998, Google was processing thousands of searches daily. Users were telling friends about this new search engine that actually found what they were looking for. The word was spreading organically, and traffic was growing exponentially. The garage days were ending, but they had established the foundation for rapid growth and the company culture that would define Google for years to come. Part 4. Initial funding and early growth, 1998 to 2000. As 1998 drew to a close, Larry Page and Sergey Brin faced a crucial challenge. Their search engine was gaining popularity faster than they had anticipated. The garage setup that had served them well was no longer enough. They needed serious money to buy better computers, hire talented engineers, and build the infrastructure required to handle millions of searches every day. The founders started reaching out to potential investors, but they faced skepticism from many corners. Most people in Silicon Valley thought the search engine market was already settled. Yahoo dominated the space, and other companies like Alta Vista and Excite seemed to have carved out their territories. Why would anyone invest in yet another search company? Andy Bechtolsheim, co-founder of Sun Microsystems, became their first major believer. After watching a quick demonstration of Google's search capabilities in August 1998, he was immediately impressed. The results were noticeably better than anything else available. Without hesitation, he wrote a check for $100,000 on the spot, made out to Google Inc., before the company was even officially incorporated. This initial investment opened doors to other angel investors. By early 1999, they had raised nearly $1 million from friends, family, and technology veterans who recognized the potential in their superior search algorithm. The money allowed them to move out of the garage and into a real office in Palo Alto, hire their first employees, and upgrade their computer servers. The search quality improvements came rapidly. Every month, Google's results became more accurate and comprehensive. Users started to notice the difference. While other search engines showed results cluttered with irrelevant websites and paid advertisements disguised as search results, Google delivered clean, relevant answers. Word spread quickly through email and conversation. By mid-1999, Google was processing 500,000 searches daily. This growth attracted attention from major venture capital firms. Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia Capital, two of Silicon Valley's most prestigious investors, competed fiercely to fund Google's next round. In June 1999, these normally rival firms made an unprecedented joint investment of $25 million. The venture capital money transformed everything. Google moved to larger offices in Mountain View, hired dozens of engineers, and began building massive server farms. They focused intensely on speed and reliability, knowing that users would abandon any search engine that was slow or frequently offline. During 2000, the team worked on solving the revenue puzzle. They needed a way to make money without compromising search quality. Traditional banner advertisements felt intrusive and irrelevant. Instead, they developed a revolutionary advertising system called AdWords, where small text advertisements appeared alongside search results, clearly labeled and relevant to what users were searching for. The competition was heating up. Established players were improving their own search technologies, and new startups emerged regularly. However, Google's combination of superior technology, clean interface, and growing user base created momentum that became increasingly difficult for competitors to match. By the end of 2000, Google was processing over 100 million searches daily and had become the world's largest search engine. The initial funding had transformed a promising university project into a company that was fundamentally changing how people found information online. Part 5. Revolutionizing Web Search with PageRank and AdWords, 2000. The year 2000 marked a turning point where Google's core innovations would reshape the entire internet landscape. While other search engines relied on simple keyword matching or paid placements that cluttered results, Google's PageRank algorithm worked differently. This system analyzed the web like a vast network of recommendations, treating each link from one website to another as a vote of confidence. The more quality websites that linked to a page, the higher it ranked in search results. Larry Page had conceived this idea by thinking about academic citations. Just as influential research papers get cited more often by other scholars, important web pages would naturally receive more links from other sites. This approach produced remarkably accurate results because it tapped into the collective wisdom of millions of website creators who linked to content they found valuable. The algorithm's power became clear when users compared Google's results with those from Excite, Yahoo, or AltaVista. While competitors often returned irrelevant pages stuffed with keywords, Google consistently delivered what people actually wanted to find. Word spread quickly among internet users who discovered they could find information faster and more reliably than ever before. But having the best search technology meant nothing without a way to pay for the massive computing power required. Google's breakthrough came with AdWords, launched in October 2000. Unlike banner advertisements that interrupted the user experience, AdWords created small text ads that appeared alongside search results. These ads were directly relevant to what users were searching for, making them helpful rather than annoying. The genius lay in the auction system. Advertisers bid on keywords, but Google didn't simply sell to the highest bidder. The ads that appeared were chosen based on both bid amount and relevance to users. This meant better ads got better placement, creating an incentive for advertisers to create genuinely useful content rather than generic promotions. Small businesses suddenly had access to advertising that previously only large corporations could afford. A local bakery could bid on search terms, baking supplies, and reach customers actively looking for their products. Traditional advertising required massive budgets and broad targeting. AdWords allowed precise targeting at any budget level. The revenue model was revolutionary. Advertisers only paid when someone actually clicked on their ad, not just for displaying it. This pay-per-click, pay-per-click, pay-per-click system aligned Google's interests with both users and advertisers. Google made money when ads were relevant enough that people clicked on them, encouraging the company to maintain high-quality search results. By the end of 2000, these innovations had created a self-reinforcing cycle. Better search results attracted more users, which attracted more advertisers, which generated revenue to improve the technology further. Google had discovered how to make money while actually improving the user experience, a combination that would drive its expansion from a promising startup into the dominant force that would define the internet age. Chapter 2: Expansion and Innovation, Google's Rise to Dominance. Part 1: Launching Key Services, Image Search, News, and Gmail, 2001 to 2004. By 2001, Google had proven itself as the best search engine on the internet. But Larry Page and Sergey Brin knew that people needed more than just text-based web search. They could see users wanting to find pictures, read news, and manage their email better. This realization would drive Google's next phase of growth. The first breakthrough came with image search in July 2001. The idea sparked from an unexpected source: Jennifer Lopez's green Versace dress at the Grammy Awards. So many people searched for images of that dress that Google's engineers realized they needed a dedicated way to search through pictures. The challenge was enormous. Images don't contain searchable text like web pages do, so the team had to figure out how to organize millions of pictures by analyzing the text around them on websites. Image search transformed how people use the internet. Suddenly, finding photos became as easy as searching for websites. Students could locate pictures for school projects. Designers could gather inspiration. Anyone could explore visual content across the entire web with just a few clicks. Next came Google News in September 2002. The world was still reeling from the September 11 attacks, and people desperately wanted fast access to breaking news from multiple sources. Traditional news websites only showed their own stories, forcing readers to visit dozens of different sites to get the full picture. Google's approach was revolutionary. Their computers automatically scanned thousands of news sources every few minutes, grouping related stories together regardless of which news organization published them. Readers could see the same story from conservative and liberal perspectives, from local and international viewpoints, all on one page. No human editors decided what stories to feature. The algorithm determined importance based on how many sources covered each topic. The most dramatic change came with Gmail in April 2004. Email services at the time offered tiny storage limits. Hotmail gave users just 2 megabytes of space, enough for maybe 200 messages. Yahoo Mail offered slightly more, but users constantly had to delete old emails to make room for new ones. Gmail shattered these limitations by offering 1 gigabyte of free storage, 500 times more than competitors. But storage wasn't Gmail's only innovation. The service introduced conversation threading, grouping related emails together like a chat conversation. Most importantly, Gmail made email searchable. Instead of organizing messages into folders, users could simply search for any email they needed. The launch created massive buzz and controversy. Gmail's invitation-only system made people desperate to get accounts. The service seemed too good to be true, leading to conspiracy theories about how Google could afford to give away so much storage. These 3 services fundamentally changed Google's relationship with users. People weren't just visiting Google to search and leave. They were staying, exploring images, reading news, and managing their daily communications. Each service collected valuable data about user preferences and behaviors, making Google's advertising more effective and profitable. By 2004, Google had evolved from a simple search engine into an essential internet platform that millions of people used throughout their day. Part 2. Google's initial public offering and global recognition. By 2004, Google had built an impressive collection of services that kept millions of people coming back every day. But the company still operated like a private startup, funded by venture capital and personal investments. Larry Page and Sergey Brin knew that to compete with giants like Microsoft and Yahoo, they needed serious money. The answer was clear: take Google public. The decision to go public wasn't just about raising funds. Google had grown so rapidly that it exceeded the legal limit of 500 private shareholders, forcing them by law to start reporting financial information like a public company. Rather than fight this requirement, the founders decided to embrace it and launch an initial public offering. But Google wouldn't follow the traditional IPO playbook. Instead of letting Wall Street investment banks set the price and choose who could buy shares, they chose a bold auction system. Anyone with an internet connection could bid on Google stock, not just wealthy investors and institutions. This democratic approach reflected the company's mission to make information accessible to everyone. Wall Street veterans were skeptical. They warned that the auction format would create chaos and drive down the stock price. Some major investment firms refused to participate, calling the whole process risky and unpredictable. Traditional IPOs relied on investment bankers to generate excitement and guarantee strong opening prices. Google was throwing that playbook out the window. The media watched nervously as Google prepared for the August 19, 2004 launch. Tech industry insiders debated whether the auction would work or become a spectacular failure. Some analysts worried that regular investors didn't understand Google's business model well enough to value the company properly. When the auction began, reality hit hard. The initial price expectations of $108 to $135 per share proved too optimistic. Bidding was slower than expected, and Google had to cut the offering price to $85 per share. Critics pounced, claiming the auction format had failed and that Google had lost millions in potential revenue. But something remarkable happened on opening day. Despite the reduced price, Google's stock closed at $100.34, giving the company a market value of over $27 billion. The auction had actually worked, just not in the dramatic way everyone expected. More importantly, it had distributed shares to 115,000 individual investors, far more than any traditional IPO. The IPO transformed Google from a promising startup into a global technology powerhouse with real financial muscle. The $1.67 billion raised gave Google the resources to hire thousands of engineers, build massive data centers, and pursue ambitious projects that seemed impossible for a private company. Going public also changed Google's culture and expectations. Now they had to report quarterly earnings and justify their decisions to shareholders. The famous "Don't be evil" motto took on new weight as a public promise, not just an internal guideline. The successful IPO proved that Google had grown beyond a search engine into something much bigger, a company that could reshape how the world accessed and used information. Part 3. Mapping the World and Mobilizing with Android, 2005 to 2008. With their IPO windfall, Google had money and ambition to match. The company was no longer content to simply organize the world's information through search. They wanted to help people actually navigate through that world, both digitally and physically. In 2005, Google quietly bought a small Australian company called Where2 Technologies. Most people had never heard of them, but their mapping software would soon become something everyone used. Google Maps launched that same year, and it changed everything about how people found their way around. Before Google Maps, getting directions meant printing out pages from MapQuest or buying expensive GPS devices. Google Maps made navigation free and accessible to anyone with an internet connection. You could search for a coffee shop, restaurant, or friend's address and instantly see where it was. The service could calculate driving directions in seconds and even show traffic conditions. What made Google Maps revolutionary was its simplicity. You could drag the map around with your mouse, zoom in and out effortlessly, and switch between Street View and satellite images. The interface felt natural, almost like handling a physical map, but with superpowers. Small businesses could add their locations for free, creating a comprehensive directory that grew larger every day. While Google was mapping the world, another major shift was happening in technology. People were starting to carry powerful computers in their pockets, but these early smartphones were clunky and limited. Most mobile internet experiences were terrible, with slow connections and websites that barely worked on small screens. Google saw this problem and decided to solve it in a typically ambitious way. In 2005, they quietly purchased Android Inc., a small startup led by Andy Rubin. Most people assumed Google would just improve mobile search, but they had much bigger plans. The Android team worked in secrecy for months, building an entirely new operating system for mobile devices. They wanted to create something that would bring the full power of the internet to phones and tablets. Unlike existing mobile systems that were controlled by phone manufacturers, Android would be open and free for any company to use. Android represented a massive gamble. Google was essentially betting that mobile devices would become the primary way people access the internet. They were competing against established players like BlackBerry and Palm, plus the upcoming iPhone from Apple. Many industry experts questioned whether the world needed another mobile platform. But Google understood something others missed. Mobile wasn't just another way to use the internet. It was going to become the main way. People would carry these devices everywhere, searching for information, finding directions, and staying connected constantly. Whoever controlled the mobile experience would shape the future of computing. By 2008, the pieces were falling into place. Google Maps had become essential for millions of users, while Android was nearly ready for its public debut. These weren't just new products. They were the foundation for Google's next phase of growth, positioning the company to dominate an increasingly mobile world. Part 4. Strategic Acquisitions, YouTube and Beyond, 2006 to 2008. By 2006, Google's leaders faced a compelling reality. While their search engine dominated the web, people were spending more time watching videos and sharing content online. A small company called YouTube had captured this shift perfectly. Founded just a year earlier, YouTube had grown from nothing to hosting millions of videos every day. People weren't just searching for information anymore. They were creating it, sharing it, and building communities around it. Larry Page and Sergey Brin recognized what many others missed. The internet was transforming from a place where people found content to a place where they made it. Video would become the dominant form of online expression, and whoever controlled video would control a massive piece of the future web. YouTube had already won the race to become the world's video platform, but the young company was burning through money faster than it could raise it. The decision to acquire YouTube for $1.65 billion shocked many observers. Critics called it overpriced speculation, questioning whether any online video company could justify such a massive price tag. YouTube had barely any revenue and faced enormous costs, streaming billions of video hours to users worldwide. The acquisition seemed risky, even reckless, but Google's executives saw beyond the immediate challenges. They understood that YouTube wasn't just a video website, it was becoming the television of the internet age. People were already spending hours watching everything from music videos to educational content to personal vlogs. More importantly, YouTube was generating an incredible amount of user data about viewing preferences, interests, and behavior patterns. The integration process revealed YouTube's true value. Google's advertising technology could transform YouTube's massive audience into substantial revenue. Their search algorithms could help people discover relevant videos more easily. Their global infrastructure could handle YouTube's enormous bandwidth requirements more efficiently than any smaller company could manage. The YouTube acquisition proved transformational for both companies. YouTube gained the financial stability and technical resources needed to grow without limits. Google gained access to an entirely new form of content and user engagement. People who might visit Google's search page once or twice daily would spend hours on YouTube, creating deeper relationships with Google's ecosystem. This success encouraged Google to pursue other strategic acquisitions. They purchased DoubleClick, a digital advertising company, for $3.1 billion, strengthening their position in online advertising. They acquired smaller companies specializing in mobile applications, social features, and content creation tools. Each purchase added new capabilities to Google's expanding platform. These acquisitions represented more than simple growth strategies. They demonstrated Google's evolution from a search company into a comprehensive internet platform. By 2008, users could search the web, watch videos, check email, navigate with maps, and access dozens of other services, all within Google's interconnected ecosystem. The strategy was working brilliantly, but it also created new challenges. Managing multiple platforms required different skills and approaches. Meanwhile, other tech companies were watching Google's moves carefully, preparing their own responses to this rapidly expanding digital empire. Part 5: The Browser Wars and the Birth of Chrome, 2008. By 2008, Google had built an impressive collection of services, but company leaders noticed a critical problem. Users accessed all these Google products through web browsers, yet Google had no control over this essential gateway. Microsoft's Internet Explorer dominated the market, followed by Mozilla Firefox and Apple's Safari. Each browser displayed websites differently, loaded pages at varying speeds, and handled Google's services with inconsistent performance. Larry Page and Sergey Brin realized that browsers were becoming bottlenecks for their vision of web-based computing. If a browser crashed or ran slowly, users blamed Google's services, not the browser itself. The company was building the future of the internet while depending entirely on other companies' software to deliver that experience. Google's engineers had been quietly working on a solution. They began developing a new browser from scratch, focusing on 3 core principles that existing browsers struggled to address. First, speed mattered more than anything else. Web pages needed to load instantly, and JavaScript applications had to run smoothly. Second, security required fundamental redesign. Traditional browsers were vulnerable to malicious websites that could crash the entire program. Third, simplicity would define the user experience. Complex menus and toolbars cluttered existing browsers, distracting users from the actual web content. The Chrome team, led by engineer Sundar Pichai, made radical design decisions. They created separate processes for each browser tab, meaning one crashed website couldn't bring down the entire browser. They built a new JavaScript engine called V8 that executed code far faster than competitors. The interface stripped away unnecessary elements, giving websites maximum screen space. On September 2, 2008, Google announced Chrome through an unusual marketing approach. Instead of a traditional press release, they distributed a comic book drawn by Scott McCloud that explained the browser's technical innovations in simple, visual terms. The comic reached developers and everyday users alike, generating curiosity about Google's entry into browser territory. Chrome's impact was immediate and dramatic. Within hours of release, millions of users downloaded the browser. They discovered web pages loading noticeably faster, especially Google's own services like Gmail and YouTube. The clean interface felt refreshing compared to cluttered alternatives. Security improvements became apparent as Chrome isolated problematic websites without affecting other tabs. Microsoft, Mozilla, and Apple initially dismissed Chrome as another failed attempt to challenge Internet Explorer's dominance. However, Chrome's market share grew rapidly each month. By controlling both the browser and many of the web's most popular services, Google created a seamless experience that competitors struggled to match. Users began expecting the speed and reliability that Chrome delivered. This browser launch represented more than another product release. Google had moved from depending on other companies' software to controlling the entire web experience from search to display. Chrome would soon become the foundation for Google's expanding vision of cloud-based computing, where software lived online rather than on local computers. Chapter 3: Maturation, Diversification, and Alphabet Formation. Part 1: Expanding Cloud, AI, and Productivity Tools. 2009 to 2014. By 2009, Google had firmly established itself as the king of search, but its leaders could see the technology landscape shifting beneath their feet. While competitors focused on social media and mobile apps, Google's executives made a bold decision that would transform the company from a search engine into something much bigger. The first major move came with Google Cloud Platform in 2008, initially offering basic storage services. But by 2009, the company began building something more ambitious. Larry Page and Sergey Brin watched as businesses struggled with expensive server farms and complex IT infrastructure. They saw an opportunity to let companies rent Google's massive computing power instead of building their own. The transformation wasn't immediate. Early Google Cloud services were basic compared to what Amazon was offering. But Google had something its competitors didn't: vast experience managing data at incredible scale. Every day, billions of searches flowed through Google's servers. This knowledge became the foundation for enterprise solutions that could handle any company's needs. Meanwhile, a quiet revolution was happening in Google's offices. The company's productivity tools, which started as simple experiments, were becoming serious business applications. Google Docs had launched in 2006 as a basic word processor, but by 2010, it was evolving into something that could challenge Microsoft Office. The real breakthrough came when Google realized that collaboration, not features, was what users wanted most. While Microsoft focused on adding more buttons and menus, Google stripped everything down to essentials. Teams could work on the same document simultaneously, seeing each other's changes in real time. No more emailing files back and forth or losing track of versions. Google Drive's launch in 2012 completed this vision. Suddenly, every document, spreadsheet, and presentation lived in the cloud. Users could access their work from anywhere, on any device. For businesses, this meant employees could collaborate from different continents as easily as sitting in the same room. But perhaps the most significant development was happening behind the scenes. Google's engineers were teaching computers to think more like humans. Machine learning algorithms were getting better at understanding what people really wanted when they searched. Voice recognition was becoming accurate enough for practical use. These AI improvements weren't just technical achievements. They were changing how people interacted with Google services. Gmail began suggesting email replies. Google Translate started producing text that actually made sense. Search results became more relevant and personalized. By 2014, Google had quietly assembled all the pieces that would define the next decade of technology. Cloud computing gave them infrastructure. Productivity tools gave them business customers. AI research gave them the ability to make everything smarter. The company that started by organizing the world's information was now ready to transform how people worked, communicated, and lived. Part 2. Launching the Pixel, Assistant, and Machine Learning Advances, 2015 to 2018. By early 2015, Google possessed all the technical components for a revolutionary leap forward. Their AI research had matured from experimental projects into practical tools that could understand human speech and respond naturally. Machine learning algorithms had grown sophisticated enough to process complex conversations. The infrastructure existed to support millions of simultaneous interactions. What remained was bringing these capabilities directly to consumers through devices they could touch and use. Google's leadership faced a critical decision. Apple's iPhone dominated the premium smartphone market, while Google's Android powered hundreds of different devices, but lacked a flagship showcase. The company needed hardware that could demonstrate AI capabilities in their purest form, without compromise from other manufacturers. In October 2016, Google announced the Pixel phone, their first completely self-designed smartphone. This wasn't just another Android device. It represented Google's vision of what happens when software and hardware work in perfect harmony. The Pixel's most remarkable feature wasn't its camera or display, but a small button that connected users to Google Assistant. When pressed, this button awakened an AI that could understand context, remember previous conversations, and perform complex tasks through natural speech. Users could ask about their calendar while looking at photos, then immediately request directions to their next appointment. The assistant didn't just respond to commands. It engaged in genuine dialogue. Behind this smooth interaction lay years of breakthrough research. Google's natural language processing had reached a point where computers could grasp nuanced meaning, not just recognize keywords. Voice recognition technology could distinguish between different speakers and understand accents, whispers, and background noise. Most importantly, machine learning allowed the system to improve with every conversation, becoming more helpful and accurate over time. The transformation extended beyond hardware. Google integrated Assistant into their existing ecosystem, making it available on phones, smart speakers, and eventually cars and home appliances. Users could start a conversation on their phone and continue it on their home speaker. The AI remembered preferences, learned routines, and anticipated needs based on patterns it discovered in user behavior. This period marked a fundamental shift in how people interacted with technology. Instead of typing queries or tapping buttons, users could simply speak naturally and receive intelligent responses. Google had moved from organizing information to having conversations about it. The company that once displayed 10 blue links now provided personalized, contextual answers through voice. These advances positioned Google at the center of the emerging AI-powered world. Every conversation with Assistant generated data that improved the system. Every Pixel phone became a showcase for Google's capabilities. The company had successfully transformed from a search engine into an AI companion that could understand, learn, and assist with daily life. This foundation would prove essential as competition intensified and new challenges emerged. Part 3: Alphabet Inc. Restructuring and Corporate Evolution, 2015. By 2015, Google had grown into a massive company with dozens of different projects running simultaneously. The search engine that started in a Stanford dorm room now managed everything from self-driving cars to life extension research. Larry Page and Sergey Brin found themselves overseeing a sprawling empire that included traditional internet services, moonshot experiments, and billion-dollar acquisitions that seemed to have little in common. The problem became clear during investor meetings. Wall Street analysts struggled to understand how Google's profitable advertising business connected to its expensive bets on robotics, smart contact lenses, and space exploration. Revenue from search and YouTube funded research into anti-aging medicine and high-altitude internet balloons. Shareholders wanted transparency about where their money was going. Page had been thinking about this challenge for months. He remembered reading about Berkshire Hathaway's structure, where Warren Buffett managed multiple companies under one umbrella while giving each business independence to operate. This model appealed to Page's vision of creating a collection of innovative companies that could move quickly without bureaucratic interference. The solution emerged in August 2015 with a surprising announcement. Google would restructure itself into Alphabet Inc., a holding company that would separate the core internet business from experimental ventures. The original Google would continue handling search, advertising, YouTube, and Android. Meanwhile, ambitious projects like self-driving cars, life sciences research, and internet delivery drones would become independent companies with their own leadership teams. Sundar Pichai, who had impressed executives with his work on Chrome and Android, stepped up to run the streamlined Google. Page would become CEO of Alphabet, focusing on the big picture while letting individual companies pursue their unique missions. Brin would concentrate on the most futuristic projects, particularly those involving artificial intelligence and scientific research. The restructuring surprised many employees who had grown accustomed to Google's unified culture. Engineers working on search algorithms suddenly found themselves separated from colleagues building autonomous vehicles. The famous Google perks and open office environment remained, but reporting structures changed dramatically. Financial markets reacted positively to the transparency. For the first time, investors could see exactly how much money Google's advertising business generated versus how much experimental projects consumed. The core Google business proved remarkably profitable, generating enough cash to fund multiple long-term bets simultaneously. This reorganization reflected Page's belief that breakthrough innovations required freedom from quarterly earnings pressure. By separating proven businesses from experimental ones, Alphabet could take bigger risks while protecting its revenue streams. The company that had started by organizing the world's information was now organizing itself to tackle humanity's biggest challenges across multiple fronts simultaneously. Part 4. Controversies and criticism over privacy, monopoly, and content control, 2010s to 2020s. The success that followed Alphabet's creation brought an unexpected burden. As Google's services became essential parts of daily life for billions of people, questions arose about the company's immense power and responsibility. What had once been celebrated as innovation now faced intense scrutiny from governments, privacy advocates, and competitors who worried about Google's growing influence. The first major alarm bells rang when people began understanding how much personal data Google collected. Every search, every YouTube video watched, every location visited while using Google Maps created detailed profiles of individual users. Privacy advocates pointed out that Google knew more about people than they knew about themselves. This data helped create incredibly targeted advertising. But it also raised uncomfortable questions about surveillance and personal privacy. European regulators moved first. In 2012, they forced Google to consolidate dozens of privacy policies into one document, hoping to make data collection more transparent. But the new policy actually allowed Google to share user data across more services than before. Critics argued this made the problem worse, not better. The European Union responded with increasingly strict regulations, including the General Data Protection Regulation that gave users more control over their personal information. Meanwhile, competitors complained that Google used its search dominance unfairly. When people searched for restaurants, Google showed its own maps and reviews first. When they looked for videos, YouTube appeared at the top. Small businesses and rival companies argued that Google's algorithms favored Google's own services, making it nearly impossible for competitors to get equal visibility. The antitrust investigations multiplied. European regulators fined Google billions of dollars for favoring its shopping service in search results. They investigated Android for allegedly forcing phone makers to include Google Apps. American lawmakers began asking similar questions, worried that a single company controlled too much of how people access information online. Content moderation created another minefield. YouTube struggled with harmful videos, from conspiracy theories to hate speech. Google faced criticism for both removing too much content and not removing enough. Conservative voices claimed their content was unfairly suppressed, while others demanded stricter policies against misinformation. The company found itself making decisions that felt more like governance than business operations. Each controversy damaged Google's reputation as a force for good. The company that once promised to do no evil now seemed like a corporate giant that prioritized profits over principles. Internal employees began protesting company decisions, from military contracts to censored search engines for authoritarian governments. These challenges forced Google to hire armies of policy experts, lobbyists, and content moderators. The company that had once moved fast and broke things now had to consider the social and political implications of every decision. Success had transformed Google from a scrappy startup into a system that needed to balance innovation with responsibility, setting the stage for even more complex debates about technology's role in society. Part 5. New Ventures, Nest, Stadia, and AI Chatbots, 2016 to 2023. By 2016, Google faced a paradox that many successful companies encounter. The search giant that had grown from a garage startup now commanded immense resources and talent. Yet it struggled to recapture the innovative spirit that had made it famous. The company needed to prove it could still create revolutionary products, not just improve existing ones. The first major test came with Nest, the smart thermostat company Google acquired for $3.2 billion in 2014. Tony Fadell, Nest's founder and former Apple executive, promised to bring the same design magic that created the iPhone to home automation. The vision was compelling: a house that learned your habits, adjusted temperature automatically, and saved energy while keeping you comfortable. Google saw Nest as the gateway to the smart home revolution, a chance to extend its data collection into the most intimate spaces of people's lives. But reality proved messier than the marketing materials suggested. Nest struggled to move beyond thermostats and smoke detectors. The promised ecosystem of connected home devices never materialized at scale. Internal conflicts erupted as Google's engineering culture clashed with Nest's hardware-focused approach. Fadell left the company in 2016, and Google eventually absorbed Nest back into its main operations, admitting the experiment in independence had failed. While Nest stumbled, Google placed an even bigger bet on gaming with Stadia, launched in 2019. The concept seemed perfect for a company built on cloud computing. Stream high-quality games directly from Google's servers to any device with an internet connection. No more expensive consoles. No more waiting for downloads. No more hardware limitations. Phil Harrison, a veteran game executive, promised that Stadia would be the Netflix of gaming. The gaming industry watched with nervous excitement. If anyone could disrupt the console wars between Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, it would be Google with its massive infrastructure and deep pockets. Early demonstrations showed impressive technology, with games running smoothly on smartphones and laptops that could never handle such complex graphics locally. Yet Stadia faced challenges that Google's engineers couldn't solve with better algorithms. Internet connections varied wildly across different regions and households. Gamers proved reluctant to buy games they couldn't download or own permanently. The game library remained thin, lacking the exclusive titles that drive console sales. Most importantly, Google failed to convince developers to create games specifically designed for cloud gaming rather than ported from traditional platforms. Meanwhile, the company quietly worked on what would become its most significant venture: advanced AI chatbots. Building on years of research in natural language processing, Google developed increasingly sophisticated conversational AI. The technology promised to revolutionize how people interacted with computers, moving beyond simple voice commands to genuine dialogue. These three ventures revealed Google's evolving identity. No longer the scrappy startup that could afford to experiment freely, it now faced expectations to justify massive investments and prove its continued relevance in emerging markets. Chapter 4: Legal Battles and Shaping the Digital Future. Part 1: The Growing Antitrust Scrutiny in the US and Europe, 2020 to 2024. By 2020, Google had grown so powerful that governments around the world began to worry. The company that started in a garage now controlled how billions of people found information online. This dominance caught the attention of lawmakers who wondered if Google had become too big for anyone's good. The United States Department of Justice fired the first major shot in October 2020. They accused Google of acting like a monopoly, claiming the company paid billions to phone makers and browser creators to make Google the default search engine. Apple alone received an estimated $18 billion yearly from this arrangement. The DOJ argued these deals made it nearly impossible for other search engines to compete fairly. European regulators had been circling Google for years, but their efforts intensified during this period. The European Union slapped Google with multiple billion-dollar fines for different violations. They said Google favored its own shopping service in search results, hurting competitors. They also claimed Google forced phone makers using Android to pre-install Google apps, squeezing out rivals. The advertising business became another battleground. Google and its parent company Alphabet controlled roughly 30% of all digital advertising spending globally. Regulators worried this gave Google too much power over how businesses reached customers online. They investigated whether Google manipulated ad auctions to benefit itself while charging advertisers more than necessary. State attorneys general from across America joined the federal case, bringing their own complaints. They focused on Google's advertising technology, claiming the company acted as buyer, seller, and auctioneer in online ad markets simultaneously. This setup, they argued, was like owning the stock exchange while also being the biggest trader on it. Google defended itself by pointing to competition from Facebook, Amazon, and other tech companies. The company argued that people chose Google because it provided better results, not because they lacked alternatives. Google executives testified that innovation, not unfair practices, explained their success. The legal pressure forced Google to change some practices. The company began allowing European users to choose their default search engine when setting up new phones. It also modified how it displayed shopping results and made other small adjustments to address specific complaints. But regulators wanted bigger changes. They discussed breaking up Google's various businesses or forcing the company to share its search data with competitors. Some proposed preventing Google from favoring its own services in search results, or requiring the company to sell parts of its advertising business. These investigations created uncertainty for Google's future. The company faced potential fines worth tens of billions of dollars and restrictions that could reshape how it operated. More importantly, the cases established precedents that would influence how governments regulated other tech giants. The stage was set for a historic courtroom battle that would determine whether Google truly acted as an illegal monopoly and what remedies might restore competition to the digital marketplace. Part 2. The DOJ Trial and Monopolistic Practices Verdict, 2023 to 2024. The courthouse in Washington, D.C. had never seen anything quite like this before. On a crisp September morning in 2023, federal prosecutors walked into Judge Amit Mehta's courtroom carrying boxes of evidence against one of the world's most powerful companies. The Department of Justice had spent 3 years building their case against Google, and now they would finally present it to the world. The government's argument was simple but devastating. They claimed Google had systematically crushed competition by paying billions of dollars to device makers like Apple and Samsung. These deals made Google the default search engine on phones and computers, blocking rivals from reaching users. Prosecutor Kenneth Dinser stood before the packed courtroom and declared that Google controlled over 90% of all internet searches, not through innovation, but through illegal monopoly tactics. Google's defense team, led by seasoned attorney John Schmidline, pushed back hard. They argued that people used Google because it was simply better than alternatives like Bing or Yahoo. The company had earned its success through superior technology and constant improvement, they claimed. Users could easily switch to other search engines if they wanted to, but they chose to stay with Google. The trial revealed stunning details about Google's inner workings. Internal emails showed executives discussing how to maintain their search dominance at any cost. One particularly damaging document revealed a Google executive saying the company needed to make switching search engines as difficult as possible for users. Another email discussed paying Apple $18 billion annually just to remain the default search option on iPhones. Witnesses from rival companies testified about being shut out of the market. Microsoft's CEO Satya Nadella explained how his company's Bing search engine could never gain meaningful market share because Google's exclusive deals prevented fair competition. DuckDuckGo's founder described how his privacy-focused search engine struggled to reach users trapped behind Google's default agreements. The most dramatic moment came when Google's own executives took the stand. CEO Sundar Pichai defended the company's practices, insisting that success came from building the best products. However, under cross-examination, prosecutors forced him to admit that Google deliberately made it harder for users to change their default search settings. After months of testimony and deliberation, Judge Mehta delivered his verdict in August 2024. The ruling was unequivocal. Google had indeed operated an illegal monopoly in search and search advertising. The judge found that the company's exclusive agreements with device makers violated antitrust law and harmed competition. The verdict sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley and beyond. Google's stock price dropped sharply as investors worried about potential remedies. The company immediately announced plans to appeal, but legal experts predicted the case would reshape how tech giants operated. The government had proven that even the most successful companies could face consequences for anti-competitive behavior. Now attention turned to the remedies phase, where courts would decide exactly how to restore competition to the search market. Part 3. Publisher Backlash and Content Usage Conflicts, 2023 to 2025. While Google grappled with the antitrust verdict, another crisis erupted from an unexpected direction. News publishers across the globe had watched the search giant profit enormously from their content for years, and their patience finally ran out. The tension had been building since the early 2020s, but by 2023, it exploded into open warfare. Publishers argued that Google essentially stole their stories. The search engine displayed headlines, snippets, and sometimes entire articles directly in search results. Users could read enough information without ever clicking through to the original websites. This meant publishers lost advertising revenue, while Google kept all the profits from ads shown alongside their content. This situation became desperate for many news organizations. Local newspapers had already been closing at alarming rates, and major publications struggled to maintain their workforce. Publishers calculated that Google owed them billions in compensation for using their content without permission. They demanded fair payment for every article snippet, every headline preview, and every news summary. Australia fired the first major shot in this battle. The government passed legislation requiring Google to pay publishers for news content. Google initially threatened to shut down its search service entirely in Australia rather than comply. The standoff lasted weeks, with both sides refusing to back down. Eventually, Google agreed to negotiate individual deals with major Australian publishers, but the precedent was set. Europe followed quickly with its own regulations. The European Union's copyright directive included provisions specifically targeting Google's news practices. Publishers could now demand licensing fees for any use of their content. Google fought back by removing news snippets from search results in several European countries, showing only bare headlines and links. This move backfired spectacularly, as users complained about the degraded search experience, and politicians accused Google of retaliation. The battle intensified in the United States, where publishers found unexpected allies in Congress. Lawmakers from both parties criticized Google's dominance over news distribution. They argued that a single company controlling how Americans accessed information posed a threat to democracy itself. Bills emerged proposing mandatory arbitration between publishers and platforms, similar to Australia's model. Google's response revealed the company's growing frustration with mounting pressure. Executives argued they actually helped publishers by driving traffic to their websites. They claimed that removing news content would harm users who relied on Google for current information. The company also warned that paying for content would fundamentally change how search engines operated, potentially making information less accessible to ordinary users. The conflict exposed deeper questions about information ownership in the digital age. Publishers had created and reported the news, but Google had built the infrastructure that made it discoverable. Both sides had valid claims, yet their business models seemed fundamentally incompatible. As negotiations dragged on through 2024 and into 2025, some publishers began withdrawing their content from Google entirely. Others signed licensing deals, though the terms remained largely secret. The outcome would determine whether traditional journalism could survive in an economy dominated by tech platforms, setting the stage for even broader questions about competition and innovation in artificial intelligence. Part 4. Competition in the AI Era and Google's Strategic Responses, 2023 to 2025. As publisher negotiations created ripples across Google's content landscape, a far more existential threat was building momentum. OpenAI's ChatGPT had fundamentally changed how people thought about accessing information. Instead of typing queries into a search box and clicking through websites, users could now have conversations with artificial intelligence that provided direct answers. The implications struck at the heart of Google's business model. The company that had dominated search for over 2 decades suddenly faced a competitor that didn't play by the same rules. ChatGPT didn't need web pages filled with advertisements. It didn't rely on directing traffic to other sites. The AI simply provided answers, complete and immediate. Google's executives watched nervously as millions of users began turning to conversational AI for tasks they once performed through Google Search. Microsoft sensed an opportunity and moved quickly. The company integrated OpenAI's technology into its Bing search engine and Office products, creating a compelling alternative to Google's offerings. For the first time in years, Bing actually gained market share. Microsoft's CEO spoke boldly about making Google dance. In response to this new competition, Google's response came in the form of Bard, its own conversational AI system. However, the launch stumbled badly. During a live demonstration, Bard provided incorrect information about the James Webb Space Telescope, causing Google's stock price to drop dramatically. The mistake highlighted how difficult it was to build reliable AI systems and how much pressure the company faced to catch up. Behind the scenes, Google accelerated its AI development efforts. The company had actually been working on similar technologies for years through its DeepMind division and internal research teams. But the sudden market shift forced them to release products before they felt completely ready. The race between accuracy and speed created constant tension within the organization. Regulatory concerns added another layer of complexity. As Google rushed to deploy more AI features, government officials worried about the concentration of power in artificial intelligence. The same company, facing antitrust challenges for search dominance, was now positioning itself as a leader in the next generation of information technology. Critics questioned whether allowing Google to dominate both search and AI would be healthy for competition. The company began forming new partnerships and making strategic investments to strengthen its position. Deals with AI startups, collaborations with academic institutions, and acquisitions of promising technologies became regular occurrences. Yet each move attracted scrutiny from regulators already concerned about Google's market power. By 2024, the AI competition had evolved into something resembling an arms race. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and others poured billions of dollars into developing increasingly sophisticated systems. The pace of innovation accelerated dramatically, but so did questions about safety, reliability, and market concentration. Google found itself fighting on multiple fronts, defending its existing business while trying to lead in an entirely new technological paradigm. Part 5. The Remedies Phase and the Future of Search Regulation, 2024 to 2025. The courtroom victory was just the beginning. By late 2024, federal judges and regulatory officials faced a complex puzzle. How do you fix a monopoly that touches nearly every corner of the internet? The Department of Justice had proven Google's dominance in search was illegal, but deciding what to do about it would prove even more challenging. The remedies phase began with dramatic proposals. Some officials suggested breaking Google apart entirely, forcing the company to sell Chrome or Android. Others pushed for less drastic measures, like changing default search agreements or opening up Google's search index to competitors. Each option carried enormous implications for how billions of people would access information online. Google's executives found themselves in unfamiliar territory. For years, they had argued their success came from building better products. Now they face the possibility of fundamental changes to their business structure. Internal meetings grew tense as teams prepared for multiple scenarios, from minor operational adjustments to complete corporate restructuring. The technical challenges were staggering. Google's search engine wasn't just a single product, but a complex web of interconnected systems. Search results relied on data from Gmail, Maps, YouTube, and dozens of other services. Separating these components would be like trying to untangle a spider web without breaking the threads. Meanwhile, international regulators watched closely. European officials had already imposed their own restrictions on Google through the Digital Markets Act. Now they considered whether American remedies might serve as a template for even stricter global regulations. The stakes extended far beyond one company's future. Publishers and competitors sensed opportunity. News organizations that had struggled with Google's dominance over information distribution began lobbying for remedies that would guarantee fairer treatment. Smaller search engines like DuckDuckGo argued for access to Google's massive data repositories, claiming this would finally enable real competition. The AI revolution complicated everything. As ChatGPT and other AI tools began changing how people searched for information, regulators wondered whether traditional remedies still made sense. Should they focus on yesterday's search monopoly while tomorrow's AI-powered information systems emerged? The rapid pace of technological change made long-term planning nearly impossible. Public hearings revealed deep disagreements about the path forward. Consumer advocates worried that breaking up Google might harm the free services millions relied on daily. Technology experts debated whether forced data sharing would compromise security and privacy. Business leaders questioned whether aggressive regulation might push innovation offshore to countries with fewer restrictions. By early 2025, the remedies process had become a defining moment for the entire technology industry. The decisions made about Google would establish precedents for regulating other tech giants facing similar scrutiny. The outcome would determine whether the age of platform dominance was ending or simply evolving into new forms of concentrated power in the digital economy. Chapter 5: Into the Future, AI, Quantum, and Beyond. Part 1: Google's Vision for AI-Powered Personalized Search, 2025. The year 2025 marks a turning point for Google as the company prepares to transform search from a simple question and answer tool into something far more intelligent and personal. Google's engineers and product teams are working on AI systems that will understand not just what you search for, but who you are and what you really need. This new approach goes beyond matching keywords to websites. The AI will learn your habits, preferences, and the context of your daily life. When you search for restaurant, it won't just show a list of nearby places. Instead, it will consider that you usually eat vegetarian food, prefer quiet spots for lunch meetings, and typically search for restaurants around noon on weekdays. The results will reflect this understanding, showing vegetarian-friendly places with good ambiance that take reservations. The technology behind this transformation relies on machine learning models that process millions of data points about how people interact with information. These systems analyze patterns in your search history, the time you typically ask certain questions, and even how you phrase your queries. They build a picture of your interests and needs that becomes more accurate over time. Google's teams are also developing what they call anticipatory search, AI that predicts what information you might need before you ask for it. If you regularly check weather before leaving for work, the system might automatically show weather updates alongside your morning news. If you often research local events on Friday afternoons, It could surface weekend activity suggestions without prompting. The shift represents a fundamental change in how search works. Instead of waiting for users to type questions, Google wants its AI to act more like a knowledgeable assistant who knows your preferences and can offer helpful information proactively. This means the search engine will become more conversational, understanding follow-up questions and maintaining context across multiple queries. Privacy concerns shape much of this development work. Google's engineers are creating systems that can personalize results while keeping individual data secure. They're exploring ways to process personal information locally on devices, rather than storing everything in central servers. The company sees this AI-powered search as essential for staying competitive as other tech giants develop their own intelligent assistants. The race to create the most helpful and intuitive AI companion is intensifying, with each company trying to make their system indispensable to users' daily routines. These developments in AI-powered search lay the groundwork for even more ambitious projects. As Google refines its ability to understand and predict user needs, the company is simultaneously pushing into quantum computing territory, where the processing power needed for such sophisticated AI operations could reach entirely new levels. Part 2: Quantum Computing and Next-Gen Cloud Infrastructure, 2025. Google's quantum computing breakthrough in 2025 marked a turning point that few could have imagined just 5 years earlier. Deep within the company's research facilities, teams worked with machines operating at temperatures colder than outer space, manipulating individual atoms to create computational power that traditional computers could never achieve. The company's quantum processor could now solve specific problems thousands of times faster than the world's most powerful supercomputers. This wasn't just a laboratory curiosity anymore. Real applications emerged that would reshape entire industries. Complex drug discovery calculations that once took months could now finish in hours. Weather prediction models became incredibly precise, helping farmers and emergency responders make better decisions. But the most significant impact appeared in Google's cloud infrastructure. The company began offering quantum computing power through its cloud services, allowing businesses worldwide to access this revolutionary technology without building their own quantum labs. Small biotech companies could suddenly run molecular simulations that previously required massive budgets. Financial firms could analyze risk patterns with unprecedented accuracy. The breakthrough created both excitement and concern. Quantum computers posed a serious threat to current internet security systems. Passwords and encrypted data that seemed unbreakable could become vulnerable overnight. Google recognized this challenge and simultaneously developed quantum-resistant encryption methods, working with governments and other tech companies to ensure a smooth transition to new security standards. Traditional data centers began evolving to accommodate quantum processors. Google redesigned its infrastructure to blend classical computing with quantum capabilities. Some calculations ran on regular processors, while the most complex problems were sent to quantum machines. This hybrid approach maximized efficiency and made quantum computing practical for everyday business applications. The technology also supercharged Google's AI systems. Machine learning algorithms that previously required weeks to train could now complete their learning in days. This acceleration meant AI models became more sophisticated much faster, leading to better language understanding, image recognition, and predictive capabilities across all Google services. Scientists and engineers faced constant challenges keeping quantum systems stable. These machines were incredibly sensitive to any outside interference. A slight vibration or temperature change could ruin calculations. Google's teams developed better error correction methods and more stable quantum processors, gradually making the technology more reliable for commercial use. By late 2025, other tech giants scrambled to catch up. The quantum advantage gave Google a significant edge in cloud computing, attracting businesses that needed the most advanced computational tools available. This success in quantum technology positioned Google as the provider of choice for companies pushing the boundaries of what computers could accomplish. The quantum revolution was beginning to reshape not just how computers worked, but how entire industries approached their most challenging problems. As these powerful machines became more accessible through cloud services, they promised to transform fields ranging from medicine to material science in ways that were only starting to become apparent. Part 3. Augmented Reality Integration and New User Experiences, 2025. While quantum computing promised to transform the digital backbone of technology, Google was already working on something equally revolutionary that would change how people experienced the digital world itself. The company's engineers had spent years perfecting augmented reality technology, and by 2025, they were ready to weave AR into the fabric of everyday life. The breakthrough came when Google's AR team solved the fundamental challenge that had plagued the technology for years, making digital overlays feel natural and responsive in real-world environments. Their new AR glasses looked like ordinary eyewear, but could instantly recognize objects, translate text, and display contextual information without the clunky interfaces that had made earlier attempts feel awkward and intrusive. Sarah Chen, a high school teacher in Portland, became one of the first educators to experience Google's new AR classroom system. As her students examined historical artifacts, the AR system instantly displayed detailed information about each object's origin, significance, and related materials. Students could virtually dissect ancient pottery, walk through recreated historical sites, and manipulate 3D models of complex scientific concepts. The technology transformed abstract lessons into tangible experiences that students could touch, rotate, and explore. The impact extended far beyond education. Google Maps evolved from simple navigation to a comprehensive AR guide that could identify restaurants, show real-time reviews floating above storefronts, and provide turn-by-turn directions overlaid directly onto the street view. Tourists in Tokyo found themselves effortlessly reading Japanese signs that appeared in perfect English through their AR interfaces, while locals discovered hidden gems in their own neighborhoods through personalized recommendations that appeared as they walked. Businesses quickly recognized the potential. Retail stores began offering virtual try-ons for clothing and furniture, allowing customers to see how products would look in their homes before purchasing. Medical professionals used AR to visualize patient data during surgeries, while architects collaborated on building designs that clients could walk through and modify in real time. The technology's most surprising success came in social connections. Google's AR platform enabled people to leave virtual messages for friends at specific locations, creating a hidden layer of communication woven throughout the physical world. Families separated by distance could share virtual meals, with AR making it feel like they were sitting at the same table. Critics worried about privacy and the potential for digital addiction, but Google addressed these concerns by building privacy controls directly into the AR experience. Users could easily toggle between different levels of digital enhancement or retreat to traditional interfaces when needed. As 2025 progressed, the line between digital and physical reality began to blur in ways that felt natural rather than jarring. Google had created technology that enhanced rather than replaced human experience, setting the stage for even more profound questions about the role of artificial intelligence in shaping society's future. Part 4. The Challenges and Opportunities of AI Dominance, 2025 and Beyond. As Google's artificial intelligence systems grew more powerful throughout 2025, the company found itself at the center of a global conversation about technology's role in society. The same AI that could instantly translate conversations between strangers and predict medical diagnoses also raised uncomfortable questions about human autonomy and digital dependence. Inside Google's offices, engineers and ethicists worked side by side in ways that would have seemed impossible just a decade earlier. Teams building new AI features now included philosophers and sociologists who challenged every algorithm. When developers created an AI system that could write personalized news summaries, ethicists immediately asked, who decides what information gets emphasized? How do we prevent the AI from creating information bubbles that divide society? The company discovered that its most advanced AI systems sometimes made decisions in ways even their creators couldn't fully explain. A hiring algorithm might favor certain candidates, but pinpointing exactly why proved nearly impossible. Google responded by building transparency tools that could peer inside these black boxes, showing users how decisions were made. They published these methods openly, inviting competitors and critics to examine their work. Privacy became more complex as AI grew smarter. Google's systems could now predict user behavior with startling accuracy, sometimes knowing what people wanted before they did. The company implemented what they called privacy by design, ensuring that personal data remained protected even as AI systems learned from it. Users gained new controls over their digital footprints, including the ability to see exactly how their information influenced AI recommendations. The economic impact spread far beyond Silicon Valley. As Google's AI automated everything from customer service to medical diagnosis, millions of jobs faced transformation. The company launched retraining programs, partnering with universities and governments to help workers develop new skills. They found that AI often augmented human capabilities rather than replacing them entirely, creating new types of jobs that required both technical knowledge and human judgment. Global challenges offered AI's greatest opportunities. Google's climate prediction models helped cities prepare for extreme weather, while medical AI systems assisted doctors in underserved regions. The company's quantum-enhanced AI could simulate new materials for solar panels and batteries, potentially accelerating the transition to clean energy. Regulation followed close behind innovation. Governments worldwide demanded oversight of AI systems that affected millions of lives. Google worked with policymakers to create frameworks that encouraged innovation while protecting citizens. They established AI safety boards and published regular transparency reports, showing how their systems performed across different demographic groups. The path forward required constant balancing. Each breakthrough brought new possibilities and new responsibilities. Google's leaders recognized that their AI systems weren't just tools, but active participants in shaping human culture and knowledge. As 2025 drew to a close, one thing became clear. Google's influence extended far beyond search and advertising into the fundamental ways humans interact with information and each other. Part 5. Google's role in the global tech landscape and its ongoing evolution, 2025 and beyond. Today, Google stands at the center of humanity's digital transformation. Every day, billions of people wake up and immediately interact with Google's ecosystem. They check Gmail, search for answers, watch YouTube, navigate with maps, and store their photos in the cloud. This isn't just a business success story anymore. It's the story of how one company became part of the fabric of human existence. The scale is staggering. Google processes over 8 billion searches daily. YouTube hosts more than 2 billion logged-in users each month. Android powers nearly 3 billion devices worldwide. These numbers represent something profound. Google has become the invisible infrastructure that supports modern life. When people think of the internet, they often think of Google first. But size brings responsibility. Governments around the world are watching closely. European regulators have imposed billions in fines, demanding changes to how Google operates. Congress has held hearings questioning the company's power. Critics argue that no single company should control so much of humanity's information flow. These aren't just business disputes. They're debates about democracy, competition, and the future of knowledge itself. Google's leaders understand the weight of their position. They're investing heavily in sustainability, promising to run entirely on renewable energy. They're funding research into climate change, disease prevention, and educational equity. The company has pledged billions toward addressing social challenges, from affordable housing to digital literacy programs. These initiatives reflect a recognition that with great power comes great responsibility. The competitive landscape continues to shift rapidly. Microsoft has integrated AI directly into its search engine, challenging Google's dominance. Apple builds more privacy features into its devices, questioning Google's data collection practices. Amazon expands deeper into advertising, threatening Google's revenue streams. Chinese companies like TikTok capture younger audiences with new forms of content discovery. Each competitor forces Google to evolve. Looking ahead, Google faces fundamental questions about its role in society. Should one company control so much of the world's information? How can AI systems remain unbiased when they're trained on human-created data? What happens when quantum computing makes current security methods obsolete? These challenges require solutions that balance innovation with public interest. The next chapter of Google's story won't just be about technology. It will be about trust. People must believe that Google's immense power serves humanity's best interests. This requires transparency in AI decision-making, fairness in search results, and respect for user privacy. The company that started in a garage now shapes how billions of people understand their world. As Google moves forward, its success will depend on maintaining that delicate balance between innovation and responsibility. The future remains unwritten, but one thing seems certain. Google's influence on human civilization will continue growing, making every decision more consequential than the last.